Good evening, everyone, and happy New Year's Eve, at least here on the East Coast of the United States. Good to see everyone. Cow's our friend says, good evening from 2021. So, Cow's our friend, I think, is in the Netherlands or something like that. So, you've made it to 2021. um,
How is it in 2021? Is it better?
We're all dying to know. Well, we want to know.
Awkward choice of words.
But always good to see everyone, especially those of you that could make it, especially if this is a time that you'd be now celebrating. Cause our friend says, too early to tell. Indeed. So tonight we have Bhante Suddhaso, who will be sharing some words of Dhamma with us after some meditation. So at any time, feel free to type questions into the live chat, and we'll address them at the end of the talk. So at this time, I'll pass things over to Bhante.
So go ahead and get in a nice, upright, stable meditation position. And take a few long, slow, deep breaths, letting the body and mind relax. Allowing your forehead to relax, your eyes, cheeks, your jaw. Just letting all the tension melt away from your face. And letting a slight smile come to your lips. And feeling this person sitting here, this collection of mental and physical components, this being with all of its pain and pleasure, disappointment and satisfaction, depression, elation, desires, aversions, confusion, feeling this being right here. So looking at yourself as though it was somebody else. Somebody else experiencing so much turmoil, grief, loss. Someone else experiencing so much pain, depression, disappointment. Someone else struggling through the challenges and difficulties of life. Bring up a deep heart of compassion for this person who's been through so much difficulty, so much heartache, so much pain, so much struggle. Bring up a heart of sincere compassion for this being, the one sitting right here. the one we call ourselves, wishing for this being to be free of all suffering, to be free of all pain, free of all depression, free of all confusion. So wishing, may I be free of suffering. May I be free of pain. May I be free of confusion. And just keep focusing compassion on yourself in this way. Again, as though it was somebody else, setting aside self identity, just bringing up a heart of pure compassion for this being, the one you know best, the one you are most intimate with, all of the struggles and difficulties and heartache and grief and confusion and pain, everything this being has gone through throughout its life, you know it in detail. So you are the best equipped to feel compassion for this being. So wishing, may I be free of suffering. May I be free of pain. May I be free of confusion. If a simpler method is easier, you can just use one phrase. May I be free of suffering. May I be free of suffering. Or if that's challenging, make it impersonal. May this being be free of suffering. May this being be free of suffering. All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space and time wish for this being to be free of suffering. So we come into alignment with all those forces of goodness in wishing for this being to be free of suffering. May I be free of suffering. and all those who you know well, your intimate friends, close relatives, those who you know in detail much of the suffering, the struggle, the grief, the pain that they've endured. Those who you know much of the suffering they experience on a daily basis. We expand that heart of compassion to include them as well. May they be free of suffering. So, with ourselves in the middle of the circle, expand that circle to also include those we are intimate with, those we know well. So, may all these beings, ourself included, may they be free of suffering. May they be free of pain and heartache. May they be free of confusion. All Buddhas and Bodhisattvas wish for these beings to be free of suffering. So, by cultivating this heart of compassion, we come into alignment with all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in wishing, may they be free of suffering. Focusing on that warm, gentle heart of compassion. Can let the circle extend a bit farther, including the people we know less well, acquaintances and distant relatives. We might not know the details of their suffering, but we know a little bit. We know enough to know that they, like us, experience a full range of torment and confusion, pain and loss. So we include them in our circle as well. So wishing for ourselves, for those close to us, and those distant. May they be free of suffering. May they be free of pain and heartache. May they be free of confusion. feeling the alignment of the mind with all Buddhas of past, present, and future, all Bodhisattvas, near and far. All share this heart of deep compassion, wishing for these beings to be free of suffering. Letting that radiant heart of compassion encompass everyone we've ever met. So even people we've only seen once or passed on the streets carries a whole history, a lifespan, countless lifespans of suffering, no different from our own. A history just as rich and detailed, just as full of pain and confusion as ours. So seeing them as no different from ourselves, their suffering is no different from ours. We wish for everyone we've ever met to be free of suffering. And as this heart of compassion grows larger, wider, and stronger, we come closer and closer to the heart of every Buddha, heart of every Bodhisattva, heart of limitless, unconditional compassion. So, as we wish for everyone we've ever met to be free of suffering, we can feel the joy that comes. That massive heart, magnanimous heart, all embracing heart. And letting that heart of great compassion extend without limit. Knowing that every single sentient being feels the same suffering that we feel. So every single human in every single world of countless worlds feels the same suffering as we. Every single animal, every single spirit, even the devas and those in the lower realms, every single sentient being feels the same suffering as we do. Each has its own history, not much different from our own. Reaching back to beginningless time, a string of unpleasant events from the mild to the extreme. So wishing for all these countless beings in this web of suffering. May all these beings be free of suffering. May all these beings be free of pain and heartache. May all these beings be free of confusion. May all beings be free of suffering. May all beings be free of suffering. Without making any distinction or discrimination among them. Not wishing more or less for any one being. Not even distinguishing between beings. Just wishing. May all beings be free of suffering. So this is the heart of every Buddha, the heart of every Bodhisattva, this limitless wish, boundless heart. May all beings be free of suffering. So you can relax your posture. Just take a moment to appreciate the peacefulness of the mind.
Well, thank you, Bhante, for sharing that meditation with us. And hello to some more friends joining in. So, hello, Elaine, Kevin, and Michael. Good to see you all. And good to see all of the viewers who are watching but not typing in the live chat. So, at this time, I'll pass things over to Bhante for some words of Dhamma.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassa. Good evening, friends. So we've come to New Year's Eve on 2021 or 2020. So just a few hours before 2021 comes here to the East Coast of the United States. So at this point, 2021 has already come to much of the world. And I'm sure many people are hoping that it will be a better year than 2020. And I was asked this evening to speak about vows, resolutions, and 4 vows in particular. And this is quite appropriate. So when we're coming to a new year, people often make resolutions. And the idea is that we're starting a new year on a better foot, with a better determination, that we're making some self-determination to try to be a better person in this next year. And this is actually a very Buddhist concept because this is Buddhist practice. Buddhist practice is when we recognize that we have some shortcomings and we make a determination to try to do something about it, to try to become better people, to try to become more awakened, closer to enlightenment, more like the Buddha. And our practice is to continually make these vows, to continually make this vow to follow the Buddhist path with sincerity and diligence. And another element of vow and resolution is recognizing that we're going to make mistakes along the way. So there's an old stereotype of New Year's resolutions that somebody makes a resolution on January 1st. And somewhere around January 15th or so, they break their resolution, and then that's it for the rest of the year. They spend the next 50 weeks back to their old bad habits. And that's not particularly Buddhist. The Buddhist thing to do is you make your resolution on January 1st, and you keep it until, maybe January 15th. You screw up and you break your resolution, and then you make it again. You redetermine, you revow, you start over, recognizing that you had 14 good days and 1 bad day. Well, let's have some more good days. Just because you had 1 bad day doesn't mean the rest of the year needs to be bad days. Just because you slipped up on your vow for 1 day doesn't mean you need to throw it away. But rather we redetermine. So we recognize that we made mistakes, we resolve to try to do better, we forgive ourselves, and we move on. So this is an important element of the practice of vows, is recognizing that we're going to make mistakes and break our vows. And when we do, we just redetermine our vows. We reset our resolutions and keep going. So the Four Great Vows in particular, they're usually associated with Mahayana Buddhism. But even those who are staunch, diehard Theravadan purists will find that it's actually just Buddhism. The Four Great Vows are just a neat summation of universal principles of Buddhist practice, which are applicable regardless of what style of Buddhism one happens to be practicing. So the Four Great Vows, I'll list all four first, and then I'll speak about each one in a bit more detail. The first vow says, beings are numberless. I vow to help them awaken. The second one, defilements are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. The third one, Dharma gates are numberless. I vow to master them. And the fourth one, the Buddha path is unsurpassable. I vow to complete it. I'm just speaking them out loud. Touches my heart, as it always has. Every time I recite these vows, there's something in me that is deeply moved. There's something in me that feels the majesty and expansiveness of these vows, these determinations. Because each one of these determinations is recognizing how vast the scope of Buddhist practice is. It's recognizing how immense the problem that we face is. And it's recognizing how difficult the task is. And in the face of that difficulty, we resolve to do it anyway. In the face of that challenge, we tell ourselves, I can do this, and I will do this. So the first one, coming back to this once again. So beings are numberless. So keep in mind that when we talk about beings in Buddhism, sentient beings, that includes humans, animals, and spirits of this world and all the other worlds, of which there are countless, numberless worlds. Trillions doesn't even begin to put a finger on it. So there's effectively an infinite number of sentient beings. And we vow to help all of them attain awakening, every single one of them. Feels impossible, and yet the heart sings, at least my heart sings, just at the thought of this. The thought of trying to help all sentient beings attain awakening. Such a beautiful wish. And there's a number of ways of relating to this vow. So the first one is recognizing that all beings centers on this being. So as in the meditation practice we did just now, Karuna Bhavana, so the development of Karuna, compassion, we start with centering on ourselves because our own suffering is the suffering that we know the most intimately and clearly. So wishing for ourselves to be free of suffering is something we can relate to in a visceral way. But we recognize that every single being we encounter has a similar history of suffering. And actually, if you go back far enough, it turns out to be identical to our own. The beings that we encounter, they seem different to us right now, but that's just a matter of condition. If you trace the line back far enough, the conditions were reversed, the roles were reversed. If you trace it back far enough, we've all gone through exactly the same histories of dukkha. It's no different. It just looks different right now because of these particular conditions of samsara. But everyone we encounter has exactly the same history of dukkha that we do, the same history of suffering, and the same wish to be free of suffering. So seeing our own suffering and our own wish to be free of it, seeing that same suffering in others, we also wish for them to be free of their suffering. And naturally, it expands. And wishing for others to be free of suffering, we both apply that in an immediate, direct way. So, doing what we can to help others whenever the opportunity presents itself, seeking out opportunities to help others. But also recognizing that ultimately the greatest benefit we can be to the world is by cultivating our own spiritual faculties, which is done through activity, activities of kindness and generosity. And it's also done through study, studying the Buddha's teachings, discussing them with others. And it's also done through meditation practice, cultivating samadhi, cultivating serenity, cultivating compassion, cultivating insight. So this is what gives us the capacity to help others cultivate their spiritual faculties, because it's that spiritual development that ultimately leads to true freedom from suffering. There's an old saying, if you give a person a fish, they eat for a day. If you teach a person how to fish, they will eat for the rest of their life. But I'd like to put this a bit differently. If you give a person some food, you alleviate their suffering for a day. If you teach them the path of liberation, you alleviate suffering for the rest of eternity. I just made this up on the spot. And of course, you should also give them food, by the way. Give them food and dharma. It's not an either or proposition. And this ultimately relates back to our own practice. Regardless of what school of Buddhism one thinks one is following, every school of Buddhism is ultimately about the elimination of self-centeredness. So the cultivation of compassion is both a way to reduce self-centeredness and also the natural result of reducing self-centeredness. So whether you're trying to become an arhat, a pacceka Buddha, or a sammasambuddha, then you will do the same practices. The practice of reducing our own self-centeredness through the development of compassion, and of developing compassion through reducing our own self-centeredness, regardless of what Buddhist path you think you're following, or whether or not you think these paths are different things. And ultimately, of course, when one comes to a direct perception of things as they are, then the whole concept of separate beings melts away. One of the stunning, mind-stopping lines from the Diamond Sutra says that a true Bodhisattva does not even conceive of a being or a person or a soul. And that is how they save all beings. So this is recognizing then the fact that in order to attain awakening, ultimately we need to go beyond this concept of persistent, ongoing beings in the first place. We need to go beyond this concept that there is a me and a them. And that is how we save all beings, is by abandoning the viewpoint of separate beings. That is how we save all beings, is by relinquishing the belief, I am an ongoing being interacting with other ongoing beings. So once again, regardless of whether you think you're trying to become an arhat or a pacceka Buddha or a sammasambuddha, we're still doing the same simple practice of going beyond the false belief in persistent ongoing entities, persistent individual beings. But you can't jump directly to that point. It's a progression. We start with morality, we start with kindness, we start with generosity, and we keep practicing it every step of the way. You never get to a point where you graduate beyond morality. You never get to a point where you graduate beyond compassion. It's there every step of the way, from the beginning to the middle to the end. Then the second of the Four Great Vows, defilements are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. So as we embark upon Buddhist practice, pretty quickly it becomes clear just how disastrously messy our minds are. Pretty quickly it becomes clear that we're drowning in defilements. We're completely immersed in greed, hatred, and delusion. And no matter how much defilement we clear out of the mind, more seems to just keep flowing in. No matter how much we clear out, more seems to well up from within. No matter how much effort we put into our practice, we turn and we look at our mind, and there always seems to be more defilements there. We feel like we're making progress, and there is such a thing as progress. But until we reach the final stage of awakening, defilements will keep arising, and they will keep flowing through the mind, and they will keep poisoning and tainting everything that we do, everything that we say, everything that we think. And it can seem impossible at times. Sometimes we think, oh, I've been practicing kindness and compassion for 15 years and I still say hostile things sometimes. What's going on? These defilements seem to be without measure. These defilements seem to be without end. Is there even such a thing as an end to defilements? And unfortunately, some heretical Dhamma teachers even claim that there is no such thing as the end of defilements. Some so-called Dhamma teachers will even claim that arhants still have lust and hatred. But actually what they're really saying is that they eventually gave up. The flood of defilements seemed too much. And without this vow to keep us going, it's easy to lose heart. When we're swept away in a deluge of greed and hatred, it's easy to just give up and say, oh, well, this is just how it is. The mind is characterized by desire and aversion. That's its nature. There's no going beyond this. We might as well just make peace with it. It's easy to fall into that kind of thinking, which is why we need to build our strength of determination through this vow. No matter how endless defilement seems to be, we will never give up our resolve to destroy it, to eliminate it, to clear it away from the mind, to sweep it out of the mind. We will never give in to it. And if we do, we'll pick ourselves up and keep going. No matter how many times we get knocked down by a defilement storm, we'll pick ourselves up and keep going. Because there is an end to defilement. There is purity of heart. There is awakening. There is enlightenment. It is possible if we just keep going in the right direction. So we make this vow. We know that there's infinite varieties of defilement, infinite shades of greed and lust and obsession, infinite shades of desire, infinite shades of aversion, infinite shades of irritation, infinite shades of delusion. There's no end to it. But there is freedom from greed, hatred, and delusion. There is enlightenment. It is possible. So we make this vow. No matter how impossible the struggle against defilement seems to be, I will not give up. I will put these defilements to an end. And the third great vow, Dharma gates are immeasurable. I vow to master them. So there's many different styles of Dharma teaching to be found in the scriptures. There's many different approaches to meditation practice, many different approaches to training the mind. There are ways which focus on study. There are ways which focus on samadhi. There are ways which focus on behavior. There are teachings which are analytical. There are teachings which are figurative. There are teachings which are literal. There's so many different styles of Dharma teaching, so many different ways of practicing. It doesn't take a whole lot of investigation into the different schools and traditions of Buddhism to get a taste of this. So many different ways to practice the path to enlightenment. So we make this vow to master them all. Well, what does that mean? It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go around and spend time with every single school of Buddhism, though that wouldn't be a waste of time. You can learn quite a lot from doing that. But one way of relating to this is to understand what's at the heart of all these traditions. What's at the heart of all these practice methods? What's at the heart of all these perspectives? What's the heart of the Dhamma from which all these different schools and traditions and ways of thinking arise? If you understand the heart of the Dhamma, then you understand all of its manifestations. You appreciate all of those manifestations. And one way of doing that is actually to study multiple methods, multiple schools, multiple traditions. There's value to that approach. And there's also value to digging deeply into one tradition while keeping an openness to the validity of all others. But it's that determination. If there is some style of Dharma practice, some approach to Dharma study that I don't yet understand, that I don't yet approve of, that I don't yet see the validity of, I'm open to understanding it. I'm open to knowing it. And I will not let my preferences and prejudices get in the way. So even if we encounter some school of Buddhism and we just instantly hate it, we learn about their main practice and we're like, that's stupid. Who would do that? My school is much better. To look at that mind and to see that mind for what it is. It's foolishness. It's prejudice. It's conceit. That's all. And look closely. Is the heart of Dhamma found in that school that we're looking at? Is the heart of Dhamma found in that tradition? Is it found in that approach? And most of the time, the answer is going to be yes. You might find some things that have deviated here and there. But if you look deeply and sincerely, you'll know for yourself. You'll know for yourself what the essence of the Dhamma is. And you can see it. And you can see it in all the major Buddhist traditions. In the different branches of Theravada and Mahayana. You can find it. It's all pointing at enlightenment. It's all pointing at liberating the heart from defilements. So we seek to develop an understanding and appreciation of all the approaches to Dharma. Because all of them pass through that same nexus, that same heart, those same core principles. One of the stories I heard many years ago, which I've never forgotten, a person who was fairly new to Buddhism went to a Tibetan Buddhist monk and said, there's so many different schools of Buddhism, so many different traditions. How can I tell which ones are valid and which ones are not? And this monk replied, any school which teaches the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path is valid. It's a very simple way of evaluating, very simple way of knowing. This is one approach to the heart of the Dhamma. And of course, when you start digging into the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, then a vast field opens up. Start digging into what the Buddha meant by each of the steps of the Eightfold Path, and you realize all the Dhamma is contained within just those 8 things. Every school of Buddhism is contained within those 8 steps. It's all there. And the fourth of the great vows, the Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to complete it. This also is recognizing how exceptionally difficult enlightenment is, but also that it is the single most magnificent thing you can do as a sentient being. There is nothing better. Building sustainable housing, okay, that's cool. It's good, fair enough. But it can't possibly hold a candle to the Buddha way. I'm sorry, but no. There's 1 million people making sustainable buildings. How many Buddhas are there right now? Not that many. How many people are practicing the path to Buddhahood? Not that many. But whatever it is you think you're doing that's so important, is it as good as becoming a Buddha? Is it as valuable as becoming a Buddha? Is it as important as becoming a Buddha? And if we're honest with ourselves, the answer is no, of course not. And the Buddha also says that throughout the immeasurable span of time that we've been wandering from life to life in samsara, we have experienced everything imaginable except enlightenment. So whatever petty goals you have, you've already achieved those goals in the past, and they did not bring you any lasting benefit. They did not bring you one step closer to true happiness. They did not bring you one step closer to true wisdom. So why would you waste your time pursuing those same petty goals again? When you have access to that which is highest, that which is supreme, that which is beyond all others. Why would you try to help people in petty ways when you can help them in the highest way imaginable? Why settle for anything less than the best when the best is within reach? It's a long reach. There's no denying that. But it's within reach. So this final vow, it's recognizing that enlightenment is difficult, but it's worth it. And there is nothing as worthy as enlightenment. There is no imaginable goal which can come even close. Besides which, every other goal, we've already done it in the past. We've already achieved it. Whatever it is you think you want to do, you've achieved it. Queen of the world, you've done it. Empress of the galaxy, you did that too. It sucks. The administration is a nightmare. Most famous poet, you did that too. Didn't make you happy. I've actually only met one poet in my life who was actually happy, and she's in the room here right now. She's not perfectly happy. She has some ways to go. She's still the happiest poet I've met. So that definitely won't make you happy. Bad news. So whatever it is you think you want to achieve with your life, set it aside. It's pointless. It's stupid. Let's face the facts. Compared to the Buddha way, it is worthless. Set aside your petty, worthless goals and set your sights on the highest. Don't settle for anything less than the best. Don't sell yourself short. And recognize that it's not just selling yourself short, it's selling short everybody else in your life. Can you imagine how much goodness it brings to your family to have a Buddha in the family? How much goodness it brings to your friends? for them to personally know a Buddha? How much goodness it brings to your city, to your country, to your world? Immeasurable, vast, far vaster than pretty poems and nice buildings. Other people can write the poems. You don't need to worry about that. Other people can make the buildings. You don't need to worry about that. You can become fully enlightened. That's worth focusing on. And again, it's a goal which can seem really distant and far off and challenging, which is why we rely on the strength of this vow to keep us moving forward, because we know it's possible. Every single one of us has the capacity to become fully enlightened. None of us lack that ability. We can do it one step at a time until there's no steps left to take. So we keep moving forward. So as we move into 2021, here's your New Year's resolutions. You've got 4 of them. 4 resolutions for the new year. And let's be perfectly honest, you're going to fail at all 4 of these resolutions. Over and over and over again, you're going to fail. That's fine, as long as you redetermine. Keep resetting those vows. Keep driving them deeper and deeper into your heart. Let them steer your life. Let them set your course. And you'll never go wrong. So these are my words for the new year. So may this new year be a year of happiness, a year of health, a year of wisdom, a year of samadhi, and a year of enlightenment. May this be the year when all beings are free of suffering, when all beings are free of defilement, when all beings understand the Dharma, and when all beings achieve the highest complete enlightenment. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante, for those encouraging words of Dhamma. And lots of joy from the live stream audience. So Elaine says, I'm celebrating right here, right now with you. Thank you. She says, very encouraging. I won't give up. And Mary, our neighbor, says, Happy New Year 2021. And Gitanyana, well, throughout the whole talk, thank you, awesome, wonderful, sadhu, sadhu. But wishing Bhikkhuni Soma, Bhante Suddhaso, all Bhantes and practitioners the very best of health, happiness, and prosperity in the new year. Same to you, Gita. And Lloyd, perhaps, or neighbor Lloyd in Montclair, says, thank you, Bhante. Have a beautiful year. And Tran as well says, thank you for sharing the great vows. So powerful. So if anyone has any questions at this time, feel free to type them into the live chat. And I will ask them to Bhante Suddhaso.
And thank you to Elaine for the pizza.
Oh, yes. Elaine, we received the pizza dana today for lunch. It was much appreciated. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And Michael Kramer, I don't know if you know Michael, Michael, says, hello, Bhante. Thank you for your lessons on reading Pali and how to safely move a cat. Does that ring a bell?
Lessons on reading Pali, yes, but safely moving a cat, I don't remember. Okay, anything? Well, that might be it for the evening, in which case you can continue practicing diligently until midnight, or you can go to bed now. It's kind of all beside the point. So New Year's are, of course, arbitrary conventions that we invent out of thin air. But they're still helpful reminders that we can always start over. No matter how many mistakes we've made in the past, we can always start over fresh, repent of our misdeeds, and vow to do better. So New Year's are a reminder that actually every single moment our old world is coming to an end and our new world is beginning. Every single moment. So every moment is an opportunity to start anew. We don't get this chance just once a year. We get it every single moment. So whoever you think you are, cast it aside. That person doesn't exist anymore. Who do you want to be? Who do you aspire to be? Create that being in this moment. Moment after moment after moment. Okay, any questions? No? Okay.
Bhavani just says, wishing you all Nibbana in this Happy New Year. May it be so.
Yeah, may it be so.
And Elaine saying, may all blessings be yours, venerables, now and in the new year as well. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Secret Spy Records just popping in for some bowing emoji. And you can join us tomorrow morning for a special New Year's Day talk. And then in the evening for our monk chat as scheduled. So we can end with 3 sadhus.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
And Happy New Year.